When a Hollywood legend walks onto a late-night stage, you expect respect. But what happens when the host decides to tear down a legacy for laughs? This is the moment Sylvester Stallone faced more than just questions. He faced a war of words. The night had all the makings of a standard late-night interview. The lights were low, the crowd buzzing, the jazz band wrapping up its intro as Jimmy Kimmel took the stage with his signature grin. "Tonight we have a very special guest," Jimmy said. "The man who made mumbling an art form, Rocky himself, Sylvester Stallone." The audience erupted in applause as Stallone appeared, his presence still magnetic despite the years. Dressed in a sharp black blazer over a deep maroon shirt, he waved to the crowd and took his seat beside Jimmy, offering a polite smile. "It's good to be here," Stallone said, voice growly as ever. "Good to have you, Sly," Jimmy said, leaning forward. "I mean, I was told you'd be bringing wisdom, experience, a few unintelligible syllables, and maybe a protein shake." The audience laughed politely. Stallone chuckled, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "Well, I left the protein shake backstage," Stallone replied. "Didn't want to outshine your green juice," Jimmy smirked. "Touché. So, let's talk about your new movie, another action flick, or did you finally decide to make something with plot?" Stallone kept his expression neutral. "It's a story about redemption, a veteran confronting the ghosts of his past, something that speaks to real-world pain." "Deep," Jimmy said with mock awe. "And here, I thought it was just another reason to flex those biceps on screen." The crowd tittered. Stallone didn't laugh. "Sometimes pain needs muscle," he replied evenly. "Not to show off, but to carry the weight." The temperature dropped slightly. Jimmy looked amused. "Wow, that's poetic. Did Rambo teach you that, or was it Rocky?" Stallone leaned back. "Funny. I always thought comedy should punch up, not down." Jimmy raised his eyebrows, surprised by the jab. "Just having fun," he said quickly. "Don't want to get Boda slammed on live TV." "Don't worry," Stallone said. "I only hit when it's scripted." The tension was building. The studio audience sensed it. So, what started as banter was shifting into something sharper. Jimmy tried to steer things lighter. "Well, let's go back. The first Rocky film. You wrote it in 3 days, right? Did you just run out of crayons?" Or a ripple of discomfort ran through the audience. Stallone paused. "I wrote it with everything I had," he said calmly, "while sleeping in a bus terminal trying to sell my dog to eat. So yeah, crayons weren't really the priority." The crowd went quiet. Jimmy looked taken aback. Stallone leaned forward. "You know, Jimmy, sometimes you crack jokes, sometimes you crack dignity. Be careful which you're breaking tonight." The stage was set, the gloves were off, and this interview was only getting started. Everyone expected jokes. What they didn't expect was a fight for respect unfolding live before their eyes. With each remark, Jimmy went lower and Stallone rose higher. Jimmy leaned back, smiling as if nothing had just happened. "You know, Sly, you should do stand-up." That comeback was almost intelligible. Stallone didn't flinch. "And you should try sincerity sometime. It might shock your audience." The crowd let out an audible "oh," sensing the tension ratchet up. Jimmy, clearly enjoying himself, pressed further. "Let's be honest, you've made more sequels than Hollywood has original ideas. Ever think of just letting it go?" Stallone crossed his legs slowly. "I keep telling stories people want to hear. Maybe that's the part that bothers you." Jimmy chuckled sarcastically. Or maybe it's that you keep playing the same guy with a new haircut. Stallone's gaze sharpened. Better than being a new haircut with the same jokes. The audience roared. Jimmy smiled tightly. Okay, touché, but seriously, isn't there a part of you that worries people only see you as a punchline? Stallone leaned in. Only when hosts like you try to write the jokes. Let me remind you, Rocky wasn't just a film. It was hope for a lot of people who had none. The atmosphere shifted again. The applause came, strong and heartfelt. Jimmy tried to reclaim the momentum. But you're a millionaire now, right? Don't you think it's a bit rich talking about struggle? Stallone's voice deepened. Struggle doesn't expire with a paycheck. It leaves scars. And it teaches you to recognize when you're being used for someone else's punchline. Jimmy was silent for a beat. You think I'm using you? Stallone didn't blink. You tell me. The audience held its breath. For the first time, Jimmy looked uncomfortable. Then he forced a laugh. Well, folks, I didn't realize we booked a philosophy major tonight. Stallone smiled. Funny, I thought we booked a host. The studio erupted again. Jimmy clenched his jaw. The game was changing and he was no longer winning. He scrambled for a new angle. So, how do you respond to critics who say your career is just nostalgia now that without the past, you're not much in the present? Stallone's tone turned colder. Critics talk. Legends work. And I don't need to relive the past. I built it. There was a pause. The audience, nearly breathless, burst into thunderous applause. It wasn't just support. It was respect. Jimmy finally leaned forward, trying one last time. Come on, Sly. Can't you take a joke? Stallone's smile faded. Can you take the truth? Silence. The kind that swallows a room whole. And then Jimmy looked at the camera, forcing a grin. We'll be right back after this short break. If Stallone doesn't punch me before then. But everyone watching knew this wasn't just a break. It was a battle line, and it was far from over. When words start cutting deeper than expected, even the strongest can feel the heat. But Stallone doesn't flinch. He responds with the force of a man who's had to fight his whole life just to be heard. The commercial break ended and the light snapped back on. Jimmy straightened his jacket and put on his polished grin. We're back with the one and only Sylvester Stallone, he said. Voice therapy. The man, the myth, the what is it now 80-something-year-old action figure. Stallone let the audience laugh unmoved. Better to be molded in stone than made of plastic, Jimmy. The crowd applauded again, louder this time. There was a shift in the studio, a divide, Jimmy noticed. Well, I have to say, Jimmy said, pretending not to feel it. Your fans are loyal. Almost aggressively so, like they think you're still that scrappy underdog from Philly. I am, Stallone said simply. I just wear better shoes now. Jimmy scoffed. But come on, Sly. Haven't we moved past the whole underdog thing? Isn't it time to hang up the gloves literally and metaphorically? Stallone looked him straight in the eye. You ever tell a soldier to hang up his boots because the war makes you uncomfortable? Jimmy blinked. The air got heavy. I don't think making a Rocky IX qualifies as war. It does when you're fighting cynicism, apathy, and the belief that people like me can't still inspire. The audience burst into applause. Stallone's voice, steady and calm, carried weight. Jimmy attempted another jab. So what you're saying is it's not ego, it's mission. No, Stallone said, it's responsibility to remind people that you don't stop because the world tells you to. You stop when you decide you're done. Powerful words, Jimmy nodded, then added quickly, spoken like a man trying to sell a box office ticket. Stallone's eyes hardened. You know, Jimmy, you keep trying to turn this into a punchline. Maybe because deep down you're afraid someone might take me seriously. The crowd erupted. Jimmy sat back visibly rattled now. You want to know what scares me, Sly Jimmy said, feigning calm. It's that people think your on-screen persona is who you are. That Rocky is real. Stallone leaned forward slowly. Rocky is real. Not just because I wrote him, but because millions of people saw themselves in him. He's a mirror, Jimmy. Something you clearly avoid looking into. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was electric. The tension had crystallized and everyone knew it was going to explode. There's a point when even the most composed man decides enough is enough. And when Sylvester Stallone stood up, the entire world watched. The air was lead when Jimmy leaned back and said, "So Sly, what's next? A line of anti-aging supplements, maybe a reality show keeping up with the comebacks?" The audience chuckled weakly, but there was hesitation now. They felt it. The moment had changed. Stallone exhaled slowly. You know, Jimmy, it's funny. You sit in that chair and poke fun like it's armor. But at some point, the jokes stop being clever and start becoming noise. Jimmy shrugged. It's just TV, man. You know that. Stallone's voice dropped. Maybe that's the problem. You treat everything like a punchline. Even the people who came here with a story worth telling. A hush swept through the room. Jimmy chuckled nervously. Don't be so sensitive, Sly. You've taken real punches. Surely you can take a few words. Stallone stood up. The movement was calm, slow, deliberate. The audience gasped. I've taken enough, he said. And I've given enough to this industry, to this audience, to the spirit of what real storytelling is about. Jimmy stood too, trying to control the optics. Hey, where are you going? We're not done. Stallone turned to the crowd. But I am. The audience was silent. Then applause erupted. Not out of shock, out of solidarity. Jimmy tried to laugh it off. Don't worry, folks. Next week, we'll have someone with a sense of humor. Stallone paused at the edge of the stage. Next week, try having someone with a soul. He began to walk off, but just before he disappeared behind the curtain, he turned back one last time. His eyes scanned the studio. Those years of battles, comebacks, and quiet dignity rising behind his gaze. You know, he said slowly. I've spent a lifetime building characters who fight for something. Maybe it's time late night did the same. The camera tried to follow him, but the image cut awkwardly to Jimmy, left blinking, unsure how to recover. Backstage, a camera crew caught Stallone as he walked past stunned crew members. Several clapped. Others nodded. One young intern whispered, "Thank you." Twitter erupted. Hashtags like, "Hate Respect Stallone" and "Hot Late Night Gone Wrong" began trending worldwide. Memes flooded the web. A still of Stallone standing proud as the caption read, "Strength isn't loud, it's dignified." The segment was replayed endlessly on news outlets, dissected by pundits, and praised by fans. Even celebrities chimed in, actors, directors, athletes, offering their admiration. Stallone hadn't just walked out of a studio. He had walked into history. What started as just another late-night appearance turned into a moment of raw confrontation. One that exposed not just egos, but values. Stallone didn't storm out in anger. He walked out in dignity, and the audience both in the studio and across the globe knew they had just witnessed something real. Who was right, who went too far? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more stories that pull back the curtain on celebrity moments the world can't stop talking about, subscribe now. This wasn't just another talk show episode. This was a turning